What's an actual victimless crime? Jaywalking when there are no cars on the road. In the state of Colorado, they took jaywalking off as a criminal offense. Now you can't get arrested unless you cause an accident or impede traffic in such a way that it ruins daily traffic. Also, they hand you a pamphlet about the risks of jaywalking. Edit. My most upvoted comment. Jaywalking was a kinda mad-up crime perpetuated by the growing U.S. auto injury to make it seem like cars weren't as dangerous as they are. It was also to redefine roads, which had existed for thousands of years, as swimming exclusively for cars. Won't you think of the poor ants? You only think about the poor ants? What about the middle-class ants? Sleeping in your car when you are too drunk and can't drive. Just don't sleep in the driver's seat. Can still get a DUI just for being behind the wheel even in a parked car. Edit. And apparently in a lot of places just for being inside the car and having possession of the keys. Which is nuts. In many states you can get a DUI for having the keys on you and being asleep in the back seat. A buddy of mine beat that charge by putting his keys in the trunk and just locked the doors from the inside. He got woken up by a cop and was given the tests. He was too drunk to finish them. Still, he was asked where his keys were and he said in the trunk, "I can't get to them unless I hit the button under the dash," which he was still too drunk to point out. The cop let him go back to sleep. I just got checkmated by a drunk guy. Fair enough. Have a good night. Many years ago there was a big toto in Maryland because cops kept hassling truckers to move on when they had pulled over to catch some sleep. Do cops not realize that trucks have recording devices known as tachographs installed to monitor the driving times, breaks and rest periods of individual drivers? Unless that's just Europe. Downloading very old games that are no longer available for sale. The Sims and The Sims 2 are a great example of this. I'd pay money for them if they'd actually still sell them. But we have to resort to other means to get them. There's no legal way to play the Deadpool game. It's not even that old. It's just that Activision's license to produce Marvel games expired. Because of this, the only way to play it is by pirating it. That kind of pisses me off. I bought a copy of the Phase 10 game for Android like 5 years ago because I enjoyed playing it while I was waiting for things. I even paid $10 for it to get the ads removed. Then one day they were like, "Oops, license expired. Sorry," and blocked the game from being used, even in single player mode. Now some other company made a version of it and I refused to give Mattel any more money for it. At least I was smart enough to take screenshots of all their alternate phases before the game was discontinued. So I can at least play those phase sets with the real cards. Edit. Since people asked, here are the alternate set of phases they had in that game. There's a couple movies I'm willing to pay money to own but I cannot. For I am in America and there's stupid trademark issues. Edit. The movies are The Others starring Nicole Kidman and The King Floor starring Mark Blucas. Edit 2. Today I learned The Others is coming out on Criterion later this year. Is one of them Dogma? Cause I got the DVD although it's Europe zoned. And I am happy to relinquish it for a reasonable offer. Edit. Any advance on Tree Fitty? Emulating and/or pirating a game that is no longer available by any means. A new report says 87% of games released before 2010 are no longer commercially available, and it's a huge loss. Thankfully, this is causing the U.S. Library of Congress to rethink the exemption on gaming companies providing them working copies of source code to ensure the games can always work. You have to also archive the computer that runs that code, or at least a virtual machine that simulates it. Let's say you have an old Apple game. You'll need a 6502 processor to run it. Luckily, this is pretty easy. You can run a simulator in a web browser for 30-year-old computers now, but it kind of has to be maintained. The emulator itself might not run on any commercially sold hardware in 30 more years. I believe they think about this for old movies and old audio recordings. Ideally, you go through a process where you digitize them once, then keep maintaining it throughout the ages as formats change. But before digital, if you had some cylinder records for a phonograph, you had to also store a working phonograph in order to play them. I'd add, pirating media you've already bought, because you need it in a different format. Pirating a game because your CD version won't work anymore. As an ER nurse, I give a lot of SH away to patients against the rules or advise them where they can get it cheaper. Big hospitals have more money than God, but want me to send you home with 1 or 2 wound supplies for a wound that will take 4 weeks to heal. F that. Here's a box of 50 for your purse. I never gave that to you. Hey, you need crutches, and here they are. But first, before you sign that you got these crutches are $1,000. The same or better are on Amazon for $50 or less. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but I can offer you a free wheelchair ride out to your son's car. You could argue that the hospital is the victim here, I'm telling you that the hospital gets a discount on supplies and marks them up 1000% to sell to those going through an emergency. Who's really the victim? Edit. Appreciate all the support. Don't take this the wrong way, but I hope I never have the pleasure of taking care of any of you. Stay healthy, people, and keep living your life to the best you can. To those saying I could get fired for this, I appreciate the concern. I can almost guarantee I will one day be fired for this. It's worth it to me. I will get another job in a different ER and continue my work. Regarding the people saying I'm contributing to the problem is in the USA healthcare model. Everything from insurance to CEOs. If my treatment and proper care of the individual is contributing to the problem, frankly, I don't think I care. TBH. I will continue. Lastly, various arguments have been made to if this is a victimless crime or not. I don't disagree with some, but it's the closest thing I have to answer the question. Apologies if it doesn't 100% fit. Stay beautiful, people. So, this just happened to me in the past month. I was out of state, visiting my kids, and had to go to the ER because I did something to my shoulder, was in a ton of pain, couldn't lift my arm, etc. etc. Get to the ER, and realize that I didn't have my insurance card with me. No problem, just bill me. I'll file it with my insurance after I get the bill. Note, my insurance has an out-of-network ER visit set at $500. So, get home, a few weeks later, get the bill from the ER. Oh, we noticed that you didn't have insurance on file. So we do understand that hospital bills can be hard. So we've given you the uninsured discount of $250. What? So, if I file with my insurance, I'll end up paying twice what the hospital is going to charge me for paying in cash. Guess what I did? We recently moved from an apartment to a house. Due to some complications and delays, I couldn't be there for the morning of moving day, so my wife would have to handle the movers getting stuff from our apartment furniture only. We moved all the boxes ourselves, but she didn't feel confident handling it and asked her parents to come down. Long story short, it's a rainy day and my Phil decides the first thing he should do upon entering the new house with wet shoes on is head into the basement, where he proceeds to slip and fall down literally every stair. Yes, there is a railing. He gets to the hospital, and without thinking tells the doctor that he fell at his daughter's new house. He wasn't malicious, he just wasn't thinking. I of course want them to be okay. He had to have surgery but is otherwise now fine. But am bracing for his insurance to sue our new homeowner's insurance, making my life heck for the foreseeable future. Except total bro, doctor lists undisclosed location as source of the fall, saving my thousands upon thousands of dollars in future costs against my insurance. What the heck is wrong with your country? I mean, like, yeah, nice doctor, but why on earth is it even possible for an insurance company to sue your homeowner's insurance? Like, what the heck? Honestly, it ought to be illegal to profit from people who are under life-threatening circumstances. This creates duress and unfair leverage. Hospitals should be legally required to be non-profit entities, and no life-saving intervention should be allowed to be performed or sold at a profit. Putting coins in someone else's parking meter. I don't understand why this would become illegal in the first place other than to just jack up fines, which tells me some crooked AF people made this a law. They don't want one car to take up a parking slot for a long time. Stores want high turnover so they can get more customers in the same period of time. They'd rather have 3 people shop for 1 hour each than one person shop for 3 hours. That explains why parking is paid in the first place. It does not explain why paying is a crime. If someone's feeding a meter, there's already a car there taking up the space. There's just also more money in the meter now. That's a crime? How does anyone know you mistook it for your meter? Seriously, I live in an area with very minimal metered street parking downtown. I barely know how to use the darn things, they are so unusual here. These laws specifically target meter fairies who would go down the street adding time to everyone's meters. It also used to be a thing to follow the meter attendant around and put coins in meters before they gave a ticket. Eating food out of someone's garbage. Linus has entered the chat. No one really talks to me, I just come for the deviled eggs. I'll just slip in a little later and have some food. I'm eyeing that scrumptious looking pie. You're starving the raccoons, you sick effer. Trash pandas are people too. Many things if they're simply not witnessed. Taking off your pants in the park at night is absolutely a crime, actually 2 separate crimes. But if nobody is there to see it, no harm has been done. And there is nobody to be bothered that you trespassed after sundown. Even just going to a park or dislike for that's closed after, say, 10 p.m. I totally get that there's a reason for that, but if I'm just going to stargaze, it's still a crime. I used to work for a community rec center that had an outdoor park. I was a supervisor, so my job was to lock all the doors. The park closed at 10 p.m. Rec center closed at 11 p.m. One night I locked everything up and went outside where my friend was waiting to pick me up. I get in the car just after 11 p.m. We're sitting talking for maybe 10 minutes when a police car pulls up right behind us with the lights on. Police officer comes up to the window and asks for both our IDs. I tell him I just finished working at the rec center. I even showed him my t-shirt with the name and logo of the place on it. He calls for backup or they just show up. Either way, within 10 minutes there's 3 cars and they're running our names and asking all kinds of questions. They asked me 3 different times if I had any warrants. I had just moved back to the US and was only here for like 3 months at that point. Only had my passport as ID, not even a driver's license. All that for sitting in a parking lot next to a park. Our tax dollars at work. Dunno about the US, but here public nudity isn't a crime, causing offense is. So if nobody see you, you're probably good. But here public nudity isn't a crime. Like most things of this nature varies wildly depending on the state. On one end, you have Vermont. They have really lax laws concerning public nudity, especially if you're nude at home and just leave and go out in public. On the other end you have Arkansas, where nudity laws are so strict, even on your own private property, then things like nudism are effectively illegal. Owning 7 dildos in Texas. I would pay to see the deliberation that led to the decision that owning 6 dildos is fine. But 7 is a crime. 7 is the number of God. Satan's is 6. If Satan had picked a higher number, we could have more dongs. You can't own more dildos than God? We are the dildos of God. I have bad news to tell my wife after reading this. Don't worry, I'm sure you can distribute the ownership to siblings, parents, and any other close relatives, and just letting your wife be a frequent user. Downloading a car. You wouldn't. Now with 3D printing you probably can. There was an article posted just the past few days about hackers unlocking paywalled features in Teslas. So we're definitely there. Dumpster diving. What should be illegal is destroying perfectly good food and consumer goods simply because they're out of season and people won't spend ridiculous amounts of money to buy them. And instead of giving them out for free or at really discounted prices or donating to shelters and those in need, giant corporations decide to destroy goods and make it illegal for people to look through their dumpsters and repurpose those items. I will say, there is a place in my city called the Grocery Spot that runs on donations from places like the Fresh Market and Whole Foods and the like to bring good, nutritious food to those in need. All of it is given away for free to anyone who needs it, even if you don't directly live in the community they serve. Really good, high quality stuff too. Organic eggs, real meat and poultry, fresh produce and fruits, milk, bread, etc. I find that to be so much better than throwing away food because it's past Ray Selby date when so many people would gladly take it home to eat. Sorry, rant over. When I worked at Walmart of all places, they donated an absolute ton of food. In fact, the only food that got thrown out was stuff where the packaging was damaged or if frozen refrigerated food was left out for an unknown amount of time, so we didn't know if it was contaminated. The reason the dumpsters were locked is because people would intentionally eat the questionable rotten food out of them so they could get sick and try to sue Walmart. Also, because going into a dumpster is really dangerous if you don't know what is in there already. You know what's funny? I came to post my experience of working at Wally. We threw out everything. Clothes, food, household goods, etc. into a compactor, too, so they ensured it got destroyed. I remember getting into an argument with a manager because an employee accidentally opened a pack of paper towels when slicing open the cardboard box. The 6-pack of paper towels were fine. Just a slice in the plastic wrap as a result. I was instructed to toss the pack. 100% agree. But please clean up after yourself when dumpster diving. Sounds silly, but don't turn dumpster diving into littering. Thrift shop employee. Reason why my workplace and apartment had to get locked dumpsters. People dumpster dived for years and we didn't care. But all of a sudden, multiple times, every dumpster has its contents completely thrown all over the lots, into the ditches, behind buildings, just every piece of trash made very painful to gather and throw away again. Lots of places have sodomy laws. So for example, it's a crime for 2 consenting married adults to have oral sex in the privacy of their own home. Also illegal to buy a dildo. Edit, not specifically talking about the US. Although some states in the US still have some laws but aren't really enforced. My town actually has some anti-pagan laws, so you can't have specific types of gatherings on certain nights of the year. But how would they even know? That's what I was wondering. Let's say a person wanted to report their neighboring couple for committing that crime and they needed proof. So they set up a camera to catch them in the act. Wouldn't that just create a whole new crime? Or would they be protected because of their reasons lol? As the other guy said, it's not about enforcement. It's about sending a message to homosexual men. There is no way of telling who is likely to engage in such activities other than a couple consisting of two men. As such, the law was created to be enforced solely in those instances. Texas won't let you even own more than 6 dildos. Nobody tell on me to Texas. Are we really free if a state can tell us how many dildos we can legally own? I see jaywalking on this quite a but I will say when I lived overseas, jaywalking even at 2 a.m. on an empty street just didn't happen. When I asked a local, German, why he wouldn't cross against a no walking sign, he said, what if a kid looked out the window and saw me? I don't want to set a bad example. Depends on the country. Germany is at one end. The US is kinda closer to Germany on the scale. France, Spain, Italy, Greece, yay, they are crossing without even looking. Depends on where you grew up. I grew up in Boston. Let's just say I never got socialized to think that don't walk or red lights actually meant not to walk. A place like Seattle is starkly different. Yay, it's hard to generalize as a whole. In Houston, jaywalking is totally normal. But cars will also try to run you over. In those Latin countries, cars will actually stop for people. It's a spectrum for sure. I was in Seoul, South Korea one time, and I got up early on Saturday to get some buns for my wife and kids. I walked down to the street, and there was a small, empty side street that I had to cross to get to the bun shop. It was about 8 a.m. There were not a lot of cars on the main street, and none on the side street. So I crossed the side street against the red light. I could not believe the dirty looks I got from everyone. Hey, I was in Japan and I was more behaved than I would typically be in the U.S. There was this tiniest crosswalk. That would take me like 4 steps to get across, and the light was on do not cross. With no cars nearby, I decided to walk across, and 2 Japanese ladies followed after they saw me cross. Crossing an empty road on a red light. I had to do that sometimes late at night on my motorcycle when I couldn't get it to trip the stoplight and nobody else was around. But it was a lighter motorcycle, and I was lighter back then. Myself. Contrary to popular belief, it has nothing to do with weight. The circles are induction coils and they detect electromagnetic interference caused by metallic objects. Your motorcycle didn't contain enough metal, or you didn't stop over the coils. I swear, the number of people trying to go left who pull completely past the white line into the intersection on red, and then wonder why they always have a red left turn arrow until someone pulls up behind them is astonishing. Pro tip, crossing the white lines to enter an intersection on red not only shoots you in the foot for tripping the light, it's also entering the intersection on red, which is illegal. Some exceptions apply, like right on reds after a complete stop. It also blocks sight lines and makes it hard for people doing a right on red to see around you without pulling into traffic and getting hit. Hanging a clothesline, collecting rainwater, or planting a garden in your yard. Some places ban you from doing these things. People always bring up rainwater on this type of post. The thing is, those laws usually aren't about putting a barrel on your downspout. They're usually about building large reservoirs. Quite often it's not so much that you're collecting rainwater, it's that you're collecting so much that you're denying your downhill neighbors their fair share or damaging the environment. And the mosquitoes. People don't maintain their cisterns. Edit, what have I done? Setting up a lemonade stand without a vendor license. Oftentimes the license is $5. They mostly want to warn people about food safety to make sure the stand doesn't end up unwittingly make people sick. Seems like and I want red M&Ms in a bowl contract clause thing. The M and MS don't actually matter so much as it shows whether or not the vendor cares enough to read through the whole contact and follow directions. Assisting the side of a terminally ill person in unrelenting pain, in most jurisdictions in the world. Yeah, I feel like it's unfair someone else has more power to decide what happens to me than me. If I want to tie my tubes or remove my uterus or have a decent way to end things and I'm willing to pay for that, why some rich and powerful dude who never met me before can say I decided you can't? How is it not my decision? For real, getting my tubes tied would be so helpful, but no doctor would even consider it before I turned 35, so I haven't even bothered bringing it up. I don't want kids and never will, but you might change your mind one day, makes a doctor say no. It's ridiculous. I'm sick of wasting money on condoms and birth control. Child Free has a whole list of doctors all around the world who are pro-letting women decide their own lives. Those doctors won't make you wait until 35. Good luck. Tons of blue laws. Basically antiquated laws on the books that have to do with religion, mostly on Sundays. In my state you can't buy alcohol on Sunday before noon. And car dealers are not allowed to be open on Sunday. Basically they are designed to not compete with church attending times like early morning. My biggest problem with those laws is that the majority of people don't go to church anymore. Sunday has just become another weekend day. The prohibition of liquor sales on Sunday is ridiculous cause of that. And also the who separation of church and state thing. As someone who grew up with a different holy day, it was just irritating and replete with establishment feels. Forgive my ignorance, why are they called blue laws? It referred to the blue wrapping that accompanied printed documents of the late 18th century. More colorful versions proposed that the term was a mocking reference to the effort to prevent blue, or indecent, behavior, such as adultery, fornication, blasphemy and drinking.